This waterproofing presentation has been the one that I've done for the last couple of years, so it's only going to be a quick run through. Basically, it's how to keep the wet stuff from the expensive stuff, and what to do when it does get wet. And it's pretty basic. Water and controllers don't mix. Don't get your controllers wet. It causes corrosion. If you've got 24 volts going to a controller, or even 12 volts going to a controller, it could possibly short out. You've got 5 volts, 3.3 volts on controllers. It could end up damaging anything in that box. Water and power don't mix. 240 volt is deadly. You'll see a photo a little bit later of a 240 volt display in a rainy front yard with some excellent waterproofing. And you don't want to kill yourself, you don't want to kill your family, you don't want to kill your friends, and you don't want to kill that little visitor's kid that runs into the front yard. Through your gate, under your shrubs, however you've got, or even if you don't have front yards. You might like to, but it's probably not recommended for your insurance and well-being for future. Water and connectors don't mix. There is a bit of a caveat here. Some connectors are fine in the water, in the rain. Others, such as the Ray Wu ones, the Stellascapes ones, and there's plenty of other controllers, cables and connectors out there that will corrode long-term when they get there. And even your solid connections, if you don't keep them reasonably dry, you can end up with corrosion in your cable, which can cause problems. And water and pixels, you do get leaks into your pixels. I think plenty of us have seen that odd pixel that sticks on a colour or whatever. I've pulled plenty apart that have had obvious water damage, but can't work out where it's getting in. It's most likely tracking along the LED down to the board or along the cable entry down to the board. They quite often dry out, so what I tend to do is if I see in my display an LED that's playing up tonight, I will actually go get a bit of white tape. I'll wrap around that LED. If tomorrow it's okay, at the end of the season, or if it fails completely during the show, I will cut it out and replace it. Even if when I put it away, it's working fine, because I know there was a problem with that LED at one stage. Boxes. Use a decent box to house your gear. It doesn't have to be an expensive box. It can even be something like the Corro Presence over top of a reasonably waterproof box to keep rain out. Put them under the eaves. It says there, mount the boxes out of the weather if possible. All my boxes sit out in the rain. I've got no protection on any of my boxes, so they have to be waterproof. A lot of them have got like an O-ring or a seal around the front. I check that every time I open the box to make sure it's not damaged. But there is actually next photo you'll see a box that I do use. What I do tend to do is once it's all up and running for the year, I'll just run some electrical tape around that joint as just an added protection point, just to stop water getting in. But also, boxes need airflow. You've got power supplies. You've got one of my boxes, again, the next one, let's jump to the next picture. The box on the bottom there sits on the side of my main LED matrix, which is now being sort of moved. It's got two 350 watt power supplies, two P2s and two fuse boxes jammed into that box. There's not an inch to spare in there, and that thing gets toasty. So I actually have two fans. These are examples of boxes. The one at the top there, a few years ago, quite a few of us bought the Masters boxes. They're designed to hold a four-way power board in your yard and keep water off them. That was an example or a test that I did in the rain, which was just a sprinkler sitting on my clothesline out the back for about 5 minutes. Guess which one leaked? You can see the blue cloth in that Masters box at the top is saturated, and there was still probably another quarter inch of water that hadn't been. Where do you get the blue cloth from? I don't know. Shut up! I found a supplier in Sydney for it. The one at the bottom is new boxes that I think Ben or someone found, and we bought basically all the supply I had in Sydney between 2 or 3 of us. Here's some of my box examples. People are wondering what the heck. I tend to fit a lot of gear in boxes, so I do need active cooling. You can see the one on the right-hand side there has got the vent. They sit vertically. The vent is actually got a bit of flight screen on the bottom there, and it's got a fan inside, 12, 24, or 5 volt, depending on the power supply. And it basically just provides some forced cooling. Yeah, you can. I've actually got a couple of 450s, I think they are, in one of the boxes, and they stay pretty cool.
Those vents are available from Bunnings. They're designed to go on the water tank, and they're the overflow vent. Fly screen, as you said, that clips on. Yep. Go into Bunnings and water them out.
Either that or get some conduit. They're quite often 45 or 60 mil conduit elbows. Cut a hole in the box and don't use cheap fly screen. See if you can get some offcuts of aluminium fly screen, because it will last longer and some of the bugs don't eat it. Whereas some of the bugs do eat the cheap fly screen, as I found out. I jam a lot in boxes. That box down the bottom on the left-hand side there has got 3 power supplies, and I think that's only 2 27-channel controllers. That box now has 2 extra power supplies, and another 2 of the 27-channel controllers, and the whole lot are getting scrapped this year. Power. Who here runs 240 volt to the yard, or to boxes in the yard? Yeah. I won't say don't. Try to keep those connections in your power lead to a minimum. In other words, if you can buy yourself a cheap 20-metre extension lead, and it's 15 metres back to your power point, then if you can do that, run it as a single piece and it plugs straight in, and that way the power lead goes straight into the box, no connections. Don't coil it. No, that's that's right.
Our favourite hardware shop has 25-metre leads for $16 at the moment.
Yep.
And that's almost shooting up to cut the ends off and use them for power injection.
That's right. There's a perfect example over there, including the coiled power lead next to it. We will bring that back. Goes in through connections. I'll go through the cable entries in a sec, but that box would be quite okay out in the yard. Just keep an eye on your boxes too. Open them up after you've had a big rain event to make sure you're not getting any water in them if you're a little bit worried. And you'll see one of mine that we did have a very big rain event and did some damage. But there's actually, you never lay power boards out in the yard. 4 or 6-way power boards we've got there, don't put them out in the yard, please, please, please. If you do, buy master's boxes or some sort of protection for them so that they are not going to get rain on them. And you'll see why in a moment. Here's options for you. The dry box down the bottom there, they're great. The lid actually goes right over the side, so any rain will flow off those.
Just make sure that your cables go down onto the ground. Yeah. Don't let it come up, so water will follow the cable. You can still end up. So
those dry boxes are really good because they actually force the cable down. The cable entry is actually right at the top, and they work really well. I think David AVD was one that mentioned he uses the ones on the far side there. They're great. They either hang from a tree or whatever, or they've got a stake that goes in the ground, and again, keeps your cable join out of the water, out of the rain. This is a neighbour of mine. This was the person we called the neighbour from hell for obvious reasons. This is not one of them. She came up and borrowed a couple of 4-way power boards and then said, "Oh, have you got a nice 6-way or 8-way power board that I can borrow? The one behind our TV's fried, and we can't get another one till after Christmas." It's about 2 weeks before Christmas. We had a nice little rain event. Jacob said, "Have you seen the front yard?" Went out there. They are my power boards. Some of those are my lights. Some of those are my plug packs. And then this is all 240 volt stuff in the rain. Then she came back about 2 weeks later and said, "Oh, here's all your power boards and all," and there was water dripping out of them. And I went, "Just keep them. There's something I'd throw in the bin." That is deadly. She had no front fence. Kids were running around in her front yard. Yeah, please don't be like that. Don't do that.
Did you like kids?
Good point. soldering, quick run on soldering when you're connecting two wires. Don't twist and tape, at least solder. The gas-powered soldering iron that was floating around here is great for repairs in your yard. During the season, get yourself a cheap $50 one if you're using it in the shed occasionally or in the garage, whatever. Heat shrink. Some people use Celastic inside the heat shrink. I think it was Aussie Phil showed us a couple of years back at a mini. He actually gets a syringe, fills it up full of Celastic, neutral cure Celastic, and injects it in there. I've been doing some of my cables, some of my joints at 9 years old, still out. I've got heat shrink, yes, but no Celastic. But most of mine tend to sit out of the water. They don't lay on the ground. And I haven't had, probably had 2 failures out of all my connections.
If you go to J-Car, they've now actually got heat shrink with glue.
Yes. Joining two wires. The correct way of joining two wires is like this. Twist the two together so that they're actually the same diameter all the way along. Solder it. And make sure that you don't forget to put the heat shrink on before you solder the wires, or you'll look a little bit like this guy. Having said that, that's not the way that I tend to do it. I tend to just twist them together, solder it, lay it over, jam the heat shrink over, and it works. Connections. Use waterproof connectors where practical. The one on the left there is the 3-pin connectors we've seen there earlier. They're not waterproof. The one on the right, they're not really waterproof. They do have a little red O-ring which sits normally just there. It's not on this one. They provide some sort of protection, but again, they're not overly waterproof. The reason why you would like them to be waterproof is not so much water getting in them and causing problems with the signal or whatever. It's the dissimilar metals in there, and they corrode. So what it doesn't cause immediate problems, it'll erode the connectors. The DMX ones there on the left-hand side, I've got a couple of those that are put in a box, just with a little bit of humidity and a bit of potato vents. They're actually starting to tarnish on the outside quite badly. My Ray-Woo ones, I have a look at them, I give them a squirt with some sort of cleaner occasionally, but they're all looking pretty good. And replace the O-rings. They usually give you a heap of O-rings. If you break one, lose one, whatever, just put another one on when you take it apart and go, oh, it's missing. The ones on the left there are actually from Stellascapes. And yes, that is the blue cloth sitting below it. The famous blue cloth. Yeah. And the ones on the right are actually designed, they're Anderson plugs. They're designed for the back of cars, caravans, trailers, for high current, low voltage. I use them in quite a few places for power injection, where I want something that's good for 20 odd amps, that's going to an item. I'll have fuses at the far end. You can sit those in a bucket of water for the whole season, it won't cause a problem. If you're running them on up to, say, 24 volts. You start running anything higher than that, yeah, you're going to have problems. They're only rated, I think, at 12 or 24 volts, 50 amps. Cables that we get from outside to inside the boxes. So cable glands. Box down there has some great little cable glands. I use similar ones, whether they're 25, 20 and 15 or 16 mil or something like that. I've got a big collection at home. Whenever I see them cheap on eBay, I'll just get 20 or 30 of them and just chuck them in the cupboard. But there's types for all budgets and all the boxes too. Some boxes you can't use those, they've got bigger holes. Some, because of the design of the box, their shape, you can't use them. The one on the left there is probably $200 or $300 worth of cable entry. It's extremely expensive. It works great, and it's modular, so if you want to put various different size cables, you buy the proper adapters, you put them through. It's out of most of our budgets. The ones on the right came with one of the boxes that a few of us bought a few years back. It's a large beige-coloured box, and they have these crappy plastic connectors like that. They're rubbery. They split after about 6 months, and they go dry. I ended up 3D printing little covers to go over the ones at the top and side of the box, and 3D printed some Ninja Flex ones for the bottom. They're the connectors on the box over there. You can pick them up cheap as anything on eBay. They work out 50 cents to $1 each, depending on, or even cheaper if you get them in bulk. Other than that, I did actually mention strips. It's basically just to remind you to use neutral Cure Elastic. Has anyone seen the results of the Cetic Cure Elastic? Someone posted some pictures up of some strips because of the sealant had actually eaten all the copper and LEDs had fallen off in the strip. It looked really good.
That's that regular recently it's not been putting as much silicon in the strips.
Yeah, it is. I always seal the ones you get from Ray. Again, I find the by default stuff is not great. There's also the stuff that's solid, so it's actually solid silicon throughout. It's a pain to cut and join and solder onto, but doesn't leak. So my Megatrix built with that, so I'm running full 5 metre strip, so it's not hollow inside, it's fully solid.
Okay.
Much harder to get water in those.
Not as bendy.
No, it's a little bit more rigid, but when you're using it for a 5 metre megatree, it doesn't really matter.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And they don't separate as much. The other problem with the strip is where they got solder joints, because the strip's not one continuous piece, it's separate pieces. And they kind of butt solder them together, and those joints aren't real strong. So if you're treating the strip a little roughly, it will break. And then you've got to cut it, solder it, glue it back in.
Yeah.
But it looks great, right? Particularly the 5-volt stuff where you control everything.
Tips. Never mount your boards directly to the bottom of a box, as in straight on the bottom of a box, because you're guaranteed if you get any water in, that's where the water's going to lay at the bottom and they will corrode. Use some sort of standoff, whether it's a little plastic, little metal one. I would prefer plastic, but I bought a couple of thousand metal ones years ago and I'm still using them. This is going back to real old school stuff. That's an old lead tricks. Predates P10 panels by a lot of years. I built this one in about 8 years ago. At the top of the image there, that's actually the bottom of the lead tricks. And you'll notice a little adapter board there and there, which allowed me to use a serial data. The lead tricks were actually a parallel port, printer port. That allowed me to use serial data, and that was actually just screwed straight to the bottom of the box. This thing was not waterproof. It was supposed to be waterproof. A little bit of water got in there. When I pulled those off, the track stayed on the wood. The rest of it sort of, throw them in the bin. If water gets in, don't panic. Turn everything off. Work out where your water leak's coming from. Is it a O-ring split, or is it you've got vent upside down, or is the silicon seal around your vent split? Is water running up from the bottom? How's water getting in? Seal it, dry everything out. If you've got a power supply in there, I would suggest replacing the power supply. Dry everything. Use some Demon water, distilled water, to wash any boards off. Isopropyl alcohol works really good unless you actually catch fire to it. And dry everything out really well before you even consider powering it back up. Once a power supply has been wet, I would bin it. Any of these Chinese ones, no way in heck would I trust them. Seal it all back up, and hopefully you'll be okay. My floodlights. These are floodlights that I've been using now for about 8 years. They're in red, green, blue LEDs. Every year I fill 1 or 2 of them up to the brim with water. They still work. Usually I'll walk out and go, why is that LED green? And it's because there's actually green slime growing on the inside of the glass. I take them out, I clean them off with isopropyl alcohol, dry them all out. I've got some silica gel in them now during the off season, and they work fine. This was my Pixicle controller last year. We had a slight rain event on Christmas Eve. Now, what you might not notice is that stream of water there is coming out of that vent. So that is filled to that point there. By the way, don't put them on downpipes. It's the only downpipe that doesn't have silicone on all the joints. But we had like 150 mil of rain in 30 minutes.
So does that mean the fan inside was actually pushing the water out?
It wasn't powered on, but like we arrived home from mother-in-law's. We did the mother-in-law thing on Christmas Eve. I arrived home with this, and I walked out the front door and went, "Oh, damn!" When I opened the box up, everything was full of water. I did not have a spare power supply. I didn't have anything. So it was isopropyl alcohol, everything, and about 20 minutes after that photo was running, it was running again. Clipped to the front door this time, which is adjacent to that. I wouldn't suggest doing that unless you're pretty sure. I measured them, I checked everything, I powered it up without it connected to the board, but it's still living, and that's still being used now.
Was the question is, how the water get in? Waterproof box.
I'd actually opened that the day before. These have a O-ring set out about that far, so it's catching the water and shoveling it straight into the box. Now, the bottom didn't have a vent. It was using a little bit of gap around to help with the fan. This one was made pretty quickly, just prior to Christmas, and it didn't have a an air entry at the bottom.
Yeah.
We go back to a quick view of my boxes there.
You put little holes in the bottom of the box to drain them?
If we have a look, these ones are in the early days. There's actually a little mesh hole about that big that's designed to go in the front of cupboards. You see it in older houses, caravans, little plastic thing. It sits there. There's one there as well. There would be one there now on this board. And then I get the sting pipe covers that you see on houses designed to go on the top of the pipe. And I actually sit that below, and that's just to stop the bigger bugs. I put some mesh inside that. That's to stop the bigger bugs getting in, but it also allows anything that does get in to drain out at the bottom of the box. And that's it.